Hello everybody, welcome back to lovely La Cerise, a beautiful French town in the middle of the windy fjords. Exactly where you would expect it to be. We are back in La Cerise, and I am very happy with how things are turning out. Even in areas where I wasn't as sure, like this little hilly village that's like filling in the gaps, I'm getting a bit more okay with it. And this episode, I'm really going to flesh out some areas I've previously developed but not really paid much attention to otherwise. However, my first order of business this episode was determining the root causes of many of the problems of our town. And the big problem was unemployment. That was the problem. That is the problem of the day. And so even though I made all those farms last episode, it wasn't enough. So I decided to expand our land in the northwest corridor of the map to unlock some tiles with some nice ore deposits, and thought creating some industry up there and some extraction would both boost our economy and give the people some place to work. So I decided to start expanding in that direction. I decided to make this road into a highway to expand into that area. I had to move some things around, but it ultimately worked out. I also had to light the road and drag some pipes out because, annoyingly, the 2-lane highway does not have any of those resources coming with it. But after figuring that out and getting annoyed that the pipes weren't connected, even though they looked like they were, which is one of the more annoying parts of this game, I finally moved on and continued expanding the road. I tried to draw out the road in a way that felt kind of natural and just close enough so I could access these ore deposits. And then I decided to start drawing a road around the area that I wanted to build these mines. And I wanted to actually kind of construct this area that actually looked like a mine. I've seen videos where people kind of use the level tool to make it look like there's like a bunch of levels, like kind of like a real life mine. And I thought it would be a really cool idea to try it out in this little area. So I did just that. I started taking different levels and then having this sort of layer cake, maybe like inverse layer cake going into the ground, which I thought would look really cool. At first, I didn't quite like how it looked. I thought it looked like like a key. It took a bit of undoing some of the things I did and then redoing, but ultimately I think the result turned out really nice. But it definitely took a while to get to that point. So I had to redo some of the roads. I had to flatten out, because it was at the base of a large mountain, I had to also flatten out a bit of area on the back side, because I wanted to keep this road for vehicles to access. I thought that would be an important aspect of this. I wanted this area to be very amenable to trucks and things like that. I decided to create a little path in the middle because I thought this area would be too big for just one mine anyways. However, when I first created it, I realized that the bridge was like incredibly thin, and also if I was a truck driver driving across that, I'd be scared shitless. So I eventually thickened that and made it a bit less freaky. And then I started dragging out this little road down to the bottom of the mine. And it looked like a bit weirdly like spirally, but I kind of liked it. And so I decided I'd keep that there. And thankfully on the other side, the lower parts of the mine were actually around the same level as the entrance of the road. So that worked out okay. After dragging out a couple of resources to this industrial area like water, sewage, and electricity, I was able to start actually drawing out these mining areas, which I really like this polygon tool. I think it's so fun to work with. And I think it's definitely one of the better parts of City Skylines 2. I think it just makes sense that you can control the area of both like landfills and resource collection things and things like that. However, it was at this point I realized I had not unlocked ore mining somehow. I would only unlock that at level 7, and I realized I was nowhere close to level 7, so I decided I was not going to wait around until I was able to do that. So I decided to just put down some coal mining on the left side, and then wait until I get to level 7 to plop down an ore mine on the right side. Then on the other side of this highway, I thought it would be cool to add a little bit of both a bit of industry, but also this little resource collection slash storage site, which is kind of an idea I actually stole from or borrowed from City Planner Plays. I have been obsessed with his series lately. I've been watching him religiously. He's so good. And I thought I'd create this little site that kind of looks like a raised mound of like rock, and it looks like a processing plant, and I thought it was a really cool thing. And also, not only does it look like a processing plant, but it's actually a stone mine, so we actually got a little bit of that too. So I thought that'd be a really handy little addition. I started drawing out a little bit of alleyway for some industry to actually process some of this resource that we're gathering. I then noticed that there was a highway up here and decided, well, hey, I don't want these resources to have to go all the way through the city just to get out. So I decided to draw out a little connection with a roundabout up to this highway up here, and thought it looked alright. It was definitely a necessary move. I then noticed a couple weird abandoned buildings, which I wasn't really sure why it was happening, but I think we just need to focus on resources a bit more, like police and medical and stuff. And then finally, when I unlocked the Epicurean Garden, it revitalized my energy in developing this little Canal District, which was great because I sorely needed that. So I decided it was finally time to start building up this area. So I really honed in on this one island that's kind of like a diamond shape, I suppose. And I plopped the Epicurean Garden right in the middle. And I wanted to really make this area just like a really like posh little park and also kind of tourist attraction. Because it's at the center of the Canal District, I wanted to really make it something kind of special. And even though it wasn't really a big area that I put it in, I just wanted to make sure it was placed prominently and not in just like some random place where it didn't really make sense. And so I thought the Canal District made perfect sense. It was at this point I realized I wanted to do some crazy landscaping and detailing. I wanted to go really hard, so I decided to finally cave and get the mod that I've been talking about and dreaming about, and I finally got it. It is the Line Tool mod. I think it's called Line Tool Light. It is so good. Well, in the first episode, I did a lot of landscaping by placing trees in a row, but I would do it manually. And oh my god, it took me years. It took me centuries. But with this mod now, it was, I gotta say, my life was changed. I was able to not only draw lines of trees in seconds, but I was also able to create these beautiful circular patterns, which I was so happy to use and so excited about. I literally went kind of apeshit with these circular patterns in this canal area. And I thought it makes sense too, because like of course, not every area in the city is going to have circular bushes and crazy topiary gardens and things like that. But I thought that the Canal District would be an adequate place for some kind of crazy gardening, because it's already like, in terms of the roads, the canals, it's already like hyper planned out. So I thought this would be a great locale for this kind of sort of both tourist attraction and also just city beautification that I think we sorely needed, especially in this area. So I planted some lines, some circles. I got really obsessed with the circular tool, and oh my god, the circles were so fun. And I made sure that every little awkward space between buildings was filled up with bushes and trees, and I just thought it made the whole area look so much more complete and lived in. Even though there were still some islands in this canal district which I still hadn't quite filled in yet, I was getting there. And I really had to take my time with it, because I wanted it to look good, and good things take time. And so I spent a whole lot of time on this one island. But I was inspired. I was inspired by the freaking Epicurean garden, and I thought this would be the Epicurean garden island. So I just really went ham. And I also drew out some paths to make sure these blocks were well connected, and also that people could access these little gardens, which is, of course, just as important as being able to see them from above, me being the builder of the city. It was also making me really happy that all the mixed-use buildings that I was zoning were finally developing, because, well, at first the reason I wasn't developing in this area was because I was worried that I would just zone a bunch of mixed-use buildings and then no one would actually develop on them, which tends to happen to me in some of these games and some of these maps. But we actually had a ton of demand, and so we were actually able to fill up this island rather quickly. And maybe it was because of the bushes and the plants, or maybe it's just because these roads have been here for so long that the land values increased, or I don't know. But it was filling out really nicely, and man, I was just in my happy place with this build. It was just really good. I also decided to zone one little block of low rent housing right in the middle of the island, just, because even though this is a touristy kind of super wealthy island, I thought there could be at least one building where people who have slightly lower income could live, at least in that little island. But that would probably not be the place where most of the middle class people would be living in this city, unfortunately. Although I do think I would like to expand the canals in the future, or perhaps add another canal area on some other part of the map, because I just love how they look. The canals are just amazing. And it's just such a European thing, it's like Amsterdam. And not even just Amsterdam, like a bunch of cities do it. Even outside the Netherlands, like I'm pretty sure Copenhagen has some canals, and I'm pretty sure London does too. Anyways, I thought it'd be really nice. I then finally decided to give that island a break and then move on to the more inland parts of this kind of canal area, and then verging into this hilly district. And what started off with me drawing these really intricate designs of trees grew into me becoming very lazy and just putting a bunch of trees everywhere and forests up on the hills, which I think made actually more sense, because this is a more residential area, a more single family homes. I figured it wouldn't make sense for there to be all these like topiary bushes and things like that. I then focused on this little tiny island, which I thought was maybe too small to have people living on it, so I decided to just make it a nice little park for all the people in the Canal District, or from other parts of the city, to come to and just look out on the water and ponder and be amongst nature and maybe even play on the playground. Who knows? The world is your oyster in Cerise, and I did not want to take that from them. I also decided I wanted to pedestrianize this island. I didn't really think it made sense that cars could just drive around on it. So I actually just made it a bunch of pedestrian paths. And what was unfortunate was that whenever I wanted to upgrade the roads into a different kind, like the pedestrian path, I would have to draw out the land and then upgrade the road so that it wouldn't give me the waterlogged error message, which was a bit annoying, but hey, what are you gonna do? And I did actually really like the look of the pedestrian road surrounding that canal. So I was thinking maybe I could just do that to all the roads on these canals. Maybe I could just make them all little pedestrian roads. So maybe that'll be something I do in the future, but maybe for now I'll leave it as an area where cars can go. But I want to try to discourage that as much as possible. So I will definitely in the future invest in more public transit, especially going to this area if possible, just to give it a more European and less American kind of car dependency. I then decided to give the industrial area a little bit of love with some trees around the mines. Also, low-key taking this from City Planner Plays. I'm sorry, I'm just inspired by you. If you're seeing this, which, hey, if he doesn't see that, he probably won't, but that's okay. I really would not let up with the bushes and trees. I was just in the zone. I could not get enough of them. I just thought they looked so good. And so I just literally put them everywhere. Then I realized that for all this park space, I didn't have a park maintenance building. So I plopped one in Ville de Travail to give the parks a bit more attention in that sense. I noticed that we had a ton of commercial demand, even though we had all these mixed-use buildings. So I just plopped down some regular commercial buildings here and there in the hilly district. I also decided to expand a little bit on the industrial area because I saw the demand meter was quickly rising again. So I opened the roads a little bit. I made a main road, which was just a 2-laner, and expanded these alleys just to create a bit more space for industries to develop. I then decided to put some little corner stores just, for people to get gas or maybe get like a little lunch on their break. And so hopefully those stores ended up being something like that. I also realized that this mine for some reason needed some kind of road going all the way out front, which I thought was weird and kind of unnecessary, but hey, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? At this point, I was feeling pretty happy with all the progress I'd made. The Canal District was really starting to come along a lot more. And yeah, I'd made a lot of progress. At least in terms of detailing and whatnot. Then in a final act of beautification, for now, for the Canal District, I decided to level the canals a bit. I thought they were weirdly too shallow, so I wanted to connect it out a bit more to the bay and like the kind of depth of the water in that area. And after leveling out the water, I decided to finish off with a little bit of districting. So I thought I would district out the canal area including also the area that's like right on the brink of the canal. I thought that was kind of included in the cultural area. I also districted out the hill area and the farms. And so this is where I ask you, please, if you have any ideas about what these districts should be named, let me know, and I will be sure to implement it. But yeah, that is all for today. And so Please enjoy the cinematics, and I'll see you next time. Peace.